Isn't she just the cutest little baby? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Hello. If you're new here, and maybe if you're not, you probably know what time it is. I make art and book related videos, and today's video is my May reading wrap up. Unfortunately, I didn't film my April one, but that's because I only read 4 books. And they were like 4 really short ones. I read Animal Farm. I read One Last Stop. I read The House of My Mother, and then I read Demon in the Wood by Lee Vertigo. It's like the Darkling's origin, kind of. They're 4 really short books, and they didn't like move me desperately that I wanted to talk about them excessively. But if you want to see that video, I can make it for you. But yeah, today's my May reading wrap up, and I read 9 books this month. So yeah, let's get into these books. So the first book I read this month actually took me all of April and a little bit of May to read, because it's a thick book. It's 845 pages, and that is A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. I read Priory back in October of 2024, so like earlier this year, literally. I read it while I was like in the middle of like midterms, and I was stressing out. So I was like, I don't know if I like it took me a while. So I was like, I'm not gonna read another one till I'm not in school and I'm on my gap year or I'm on a break to read A Day of Fallen Night, because it just took me so long. And it took me equally as long to read A Day of Fallen Night because there's just so much information to process. And I was doing a lot of crying. It's a much more emotional book than Priory for some reason. And it's much more complex and it's way deeper. And fortunately, the battle and the ending is way much better than Priory ever was. So, and that's no shame to Samantha. That Priory is the first time she ever did a fantasy book on that epic of a scale and with that long of a word count. And when you write books that big, it can get challenging and it can get tough, and that was the first time she ever did that, and she was very young when she did that. So I do not blame her at all. She needed a breather. And it took her 3 more years to make A Day of Fallen Night, and I believe she needed those 3 years to just take a breath and to calm down and to realize that you do need to, even in high-stake fantasy, you do need to kind of lengthen things out, and some things also don't need to be at the length end. So she worked on it a lot better. But the pacing was much better, and the characters were way better. Like, it's a multi-POV, so you get like the perspectives of multiple different characters. In Priory, you get split up into 4 characters, and 2 of the characters are some not so pleasing men to me. I found them very annoying and hard to read, so I had a hard time reading that book because I was just like, I can't read this perspective because I hate this man. Thankfully, the characters in this book and the perspectives are way better, and the characters are like way more compelling, and you love rooting for them. You just want to like be like, yes, survive, live, do this, do that, instead of, ugh, die, please stop writing. You know, sorry if there's any loud noises. My window is open and my cats are in my room. It's hot as hell in here today. But yeah, this book was way better. I gave this one 4.5 stars. Priory, I gave 3.5 stars for the ending. This one, my only problem is Samantha Shannon needs to fully embrace writing battle scenes, and if she doesn't feel like she's strong enough, then maybe she should take courses or like just try, okay? I don't care if it's a shitty battle scene, just give me the battle scene, okay? Don't rush it. Like, people are allowed to fight with swords, and if you're having a hard time, just read other fight scenes and just like adapt. It can't be that hard to write a complex battle scene, can it? Like especially if you're advertising a big dragon fantasy book, just like add a little more. Because there was a couple battle scenes that were just completely cut, and I was like, I would have loved to see Glorian sword fighting and fighting against dragons, and literally they were like cut. And it's like, oh, I guess I know she's pregnant, but it's like I want to see her pregnant and fighting as a warrior queen. Like, everyone talked about like Glorian Burnett, like this great powerful warrior, and you like literally give her like one fight scene. But other than I have a lot of complex and interesting thoughts, and if you want to read those, you should go to my Goodreads and my Fable, because I'm trying to keep these reviews as spoiler-free as I can. Okay, and we're on to the next book, which is a 5-star read. I don't know if I'm just willy-nilly and just give out 5 stars, or if I'm just so but I like to say that I'm just so mentally altered by these books, I just have to give them 5 stars. Like, it was just such a well-written book. Like, a book like Priory, The Orange Tree, and Day of Fallen Night, people are just like, yeah, that's a 5-star book, that's a 5-star book. No, I like to think about them complexly, and like, I don't know, I'm a double major, so I'm majoring in fine arts and English, so like I know, like, I care a lot about English, okay, and I care a lot about literature and, like, literacy, and it's like, I can't just read a book and not view it as like, some of all its parts, and just, like, look at everything, the good and the bad, and then just give that. So I don't give out 5-star reviews that often, because, like, I look at the good and the bad, and if it's real bad, usually I don't give 5 stars. Just saying. So even if it's, like, a great book, if it's got slurs and it's got denominations and stuff, yeah, I'll dock it 0.5 stars. Like, I'm not. I don't know. They should hire me as critic. And I'm still talking. I need to shut up. The next book I read was a book I really been wanting to read for a while because I love the movie and I relate to it a lot. Speak. I love Kristen Stewart, so I watched all of her movies. And so, of course, I watched Speak, and I was like, whoa, I relate to Melinda a lot. In many ways. And one of the most obvious ways is, you know, what happens to Melinda. I related to that. But also, I related to Melinda's selective mutism and the way that she just stops talking. I don't know what it is, if it's my autism or if it's just it's a coping mechanism for my depression, but I was in a lot of abusive situations when I was younger. And my trauma response was to just stop talking. You get fight and flight. I froze. I froze in every situation and I never spoke. I would get screamed at and berated by my parents for hours and hours, and I could not say a word back. I would go, nothing would come out, tears would fall. Even now, to this day, as a grown woman, I'm an adult now, I can still go and nothing will come out. That's my response. That's my trauma response. I'll still just be so traumatized that I cannot say anything. And there's multiple things it could call it. You can be just going nonverbal, or it's selective mutism, which is a trauma response. I have a bit of both. I go nonverbal all the time, not just when I'm in severe trauma responses, but like I just found that I related to her like so deeply and extremely in such a raw level, and just reading every part of this book just made me feel, I don't know, it made me feel better about myself, because it was something that I could relate to, and it's like, yeah, this happens to everyone, but like the way it's depicted in this book is so realistic, and I know it's based on the author's real experiences, but it was just so realistic that it moved me so much. I had to give it 5 stars. It was just like, this is such an insane book, and it perfectly, like, I think it like is one of the books that like perfectly encapsulates the teen and tween experience. Like, this happens to a lot of girls, and this is a lot of girls, like, prevalent, like, this is their life. And a lot of times they don't end up with Melinda's situation. They don't end up like winning. They don't end up like getting over their trauma. They end up living in it. And I liked that she was able to overcome, not even like overcome, but like to fully like, yeah, she overcomes it. Not necessarily like overcomes it, but she literally defeats her monster. And at the end, she is able to speak again, and everyone knows her truth, and everyone believes her. And I don't know, it was just so moving to me. I just had, like, it was insane. And everyone should, at one point in their life, read this book. Also, really random, but for some reason, this cover looks like Peter Malark to me, with the tree and the face. I know Kristen Stewart and Josh Hutcherson have probably never, like, been in a movie together, but for some gosh darn reason, this looks like Peter trying to hide in that camouflage. Okay. Had to get a quick drink. So we're on to another book. This book is a book by an author who's slowly but surely becoming my favorite author. She's not quite there yet. But that's because I have not read her series. I've only read her solo books. So like, but just from reading her like individual stories, she's one of my favorite authors. And she's like just about to become my favorite author once I finish reading that book. And that author is none other than R.F. Kuang, and the book is no other than Yellowface. She's probably gonna become my favorite author after I finish reading The Poppy War, but I'm on the first book. I'm on The Poppy War, so I can't have much to say. But yeah, she's slowly but surely becoming one of my favorite authors, and just the way she writes and the information she gives you is insane. And like, she doesn't tell it to you like you're dumb. She tells it to you like you're the smartest person in the world, but you're arrogant about knowing it. And it's, just the way she writes is so insane. It's just so captivating. And if you can read one of her books and be like, no, she's not a good author, like, I just can't get it, you just suck and you don't understand literary fiction, and you just don't understand books. I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars, and you're like, what? Because Fable was a 5-star read for me. The only reason I gave it 4.5 stars is because it was for 2 reasons. One, it's like it's a young adult book, like it's a YA kind of book, and it's got like kind of YA tropes, and I don't really like books like that. Sorry, it's me thing. It's a me thing. It's not you. It's me. It's me. It's me. Also, the protagonist, like the author, the way she writes this is insane. I probably should have given it 5 stars, but the protagonist herself is so annoying. I was like, I didn't want to keep reading because she just annoyed me, but I was like, I know she gets justice in the end. Like, I know she gets like her shit rocked in the end. So like, you know what? Okay, let's keep reading. But like, she was just so annoying. It's like, do all women seem like this? Do I seem like this at one point in my life? But reading this, it made me question a lot of things about myself. And it made me question a lot of things about a lot of other things I've read and a lot of other writers. And it's like, oh my gosh. And it's a very strong, compelling take about the literary world and the editing world, not the literary world, the publishing industry, and like everything that goes on about there, and also about like racism and like things like yellowface and blackface that happen in writing, where people are like literally white writers and they're pretending to be people of color, and they're pretending to be, some people even are straight and pretending to be queer, and they just like write stories about people that they aren't. And it's just, they claim that they are these things, and they just claim that they know all these things, and they write these stories, and they're incredibly inaccurate, and they will fight tooth and nail to say, no, this is accurate, and no, like, I am this, and blah, blah, blah. And so just this book coming out is like, y'all have all been called out. I hope you all read this book and are like, they know. And yeah, we do know everything. Ugh, but it was so insane. I had to annotate it. I picked up this book for 2 reasons. One, I really want to read all of R.F. Kuang's books, and 2, last year for my English ISU, we all had to read a book that came out in 2023 to like annotate and read and assign and do like a big book battle presentation on. I was assigned a book I really didn't like. It was called Burnham Wood. I read it thoroughly. I read it twice. I annotated it. I wrote an incredible essay. I wrote an incredible proposition. I wrote an incredible battle. It was insane. I got a really great mark. I got like a 95 on it. Like, my teacher was insane. Like, my essay for that was it was called The Characterization of Ecology in Burnham Wood, and I literally went on for like 5 pages explaining how the nature itself in Burnham Wood was its own character. Okay, that shit was fire. Okay, but I hated that book. It was honestly a 1.5 star for me. I didn't like it. I don't know what it was. I just didn't like it. I can make a whole video on everything I didn't like in that book, guys. Tell me if you want to read this. But it's because my teacher assigned these books, but one of the books I did want to read and wasn't assigned was Yellowface, and I was like, you know what? Now that I've read Babel and I love her so much, I need to read Yellowface, and I need to understand who she is as a writer. So I read this, and now I'm gonna go into the Poppy War. I'm reading the Jasmine Throne and the Poppy War at the same time, guys. Should I seek therapy? Just kidding. I literally came back from my psychiatrist today. But yeah, this was 4.5 stars, and I absolutely adored it. R.F. Kuang. I'm so excited for Catabasis. I pre-ordered a signed copy with sprayed edges. Let's go, guys. I read a lot of short books throughout May, which is probably why my reading count is so high. Like, Speak is only like 200-ish pages, so that's why my reading count is so high. So I'm gonna get through this quicker. But yeah, I did have a lot to say about A Day of Fallen Night and Yellowface, but they are longer books. But yeah, let's get into next. Sorry, I had to kick my cat out of my room. He was being a bad boy. So yeah, I read a lot of shorter books. So I read a lot of books, so hopefully I can get through this a lot fast. So throughout May, I decided I'm gonna read some classics. I was gonna read a lot of classics. And I did. I read a lot of classics. I think, yeah, the rest of these books are classics, and one of them is a poetry book, so yeah, we should get through this fast. If you didn't know, I'm on a journey to read all of Jane Austen's books this year, and I kind of did almost successfully with this challenge this month. The next book I read was Northanger Abbey. Surprisingly, I really, really liked it. I love Jane Austen. I love the way she writes romance. I love the way she writes relationships between sisters, between friends, between family. Just insane. And I love this book because not only is it like a book about like friendship and like pining and like love, and like familial love and like romantic love, but it's also got like this kind of like dark thriller aspect to it with like with the Abbey itself, like Northanger Abbey, the building, and like there's this rumor that it might be haunted, and she's like going around the rooms and she thinks like their mom has been murdered, and not spoilers, I suppose it's been out for centuries, but it's like this really cool book, and it's got like all these like thriller aspects. I loved it, and it's like so similar but so different to all the other books that Jane has written that I adore it, and I just like had to give it a chance. And I just like had to like consume it all, and I listened to it in audiobook, and I literally finished it like within like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And it's just like blah, blah. I finished it, everything's drawing, and I like was like, what, that's it, there's no more? What? I need this book to be longer. And like I've read adaptations of Northanger Abbey, and I was like, this is really good, I want to read the original. It's like, oh my god, the original's insane. No, I want to make my own adaptation and just make it longer, just like endure the romance, guys, because like the romance aspect was good, but it's like I was kind of like, which brother is she gonna choose? And then she chooses, and then the end, and it's like, oh, I wanted to see her with their brother. But yeah. Anyways, this was a 4-star read, and I don't know, I adored it. The reason I don't usually give classics 5 stars is usually they have some racist language and rhetoric, and also the like the writing style is sometimes a little complex and harder for me to understand. So it's like I didn't thoroughly enjoy it. But again, there's a lot of like racist rhetoric and undertones, and I get that it's like period typical, but it's like I don't like reading that. Sorry, not sorry. Next book. Sorry, I've got my review on my computer over here. The next book I read, 5 stars, but it's a poetry book. I've never given a poetry book a full 5 stars before, so maybe it's a me thing, but this book was insane, and that's Milk and Honey. I know a lot of people have controversial things to say about Rupi Kaur, and there are a few cringy poems. I do admit that, but this poem was so good, and it was so like raw. Like it talks about sexual assault, and like it talks about like abuse, and like parental relationships, and like familial relationships, and like friendships, and like love, and it was just so insane, and I loved it. And a quote that really like from one of the poems in here that really like moved me. I think it's very talked about, but it's what I have in my review. It's everything hurts, but everything can heal. And I don't know, I just love this book, and I loved the way it talked about mental illness and the way you heal from it. I don't know. I want to read more poetry books, and this one, I loved it, and it inspired me to read more. Yeah. Okay. This one, I don't know if you would consider it a classic, but it came out in 1999, I believe. I don't know. But I consider anything that came out before the year 2000 to be a classic to me, even though I was born in the early 2000s. That's insane. But it kind of does fall under like the classic section, because like that was 25 years ago. That was 25 years ago. So I don't know if it's necessarily a classic, but it is an older book that will become a classic if it's not already. And that's The Price of Being a Wallflower. I watched that movie when I was in the 6th grade, and I was going through a lot. Like I was being heavily bullied. I had like 3 friends, and I was just like crying every day, hurting myself, wanting to die. Like people were just nasty beings. And then people would like, I would stand up for myself, and I would like, if someone bullied me, I would like snap back, or like sometimes I would even resort to physical violence. I know you're not supposed to, but I was 4'2". They were 6 feet tall, calling me midget, being rude to me. I was not a midget. I just had a growth defect. I'm not 4'2" anymore. I'm in fact average height. Thank you. If my friends find this, don't believe me in the comments for being short. Sorry. I have growth problems, guys. But they would make fun of me, and I'm like, I literally have growth problems, and they're like, I don't care, you short babe, blah, blah, blah. You know, and they would just be so mean to me. I was like, you know what? I can't take it anymore. And a lot of times, sometimes I wouldn't be able to talk. I get dyslexic mutism, and I'm like, if I can't physically find something to say back to you, I'm not gonna sit there and take it. So it came to me at a really hard time in my life. And I found this book, I watched this movie, and I related to it so deeply. And I'd also like experienced similar things to Charlie, like with his aunt, with not necessarily an aunt, but like other family members and other people in my life. So I watched this movie, and I just like found it so relatable, and it was like so life-changing, and I found it helped me with my mental illness for a while, and then it got worse. But other things helped me, and I'm doing incredibly well now. But I figured, now that I'm doing incredibly well, I know this movie helped me so much, why don't I read the book? I read it in like 2 days. It was insane. 4.5 stars. I docked some points because there's a few things in this book that make me feel really uncomfortable. And like, not the writer's fault. I get that the cycle of abuse is really hard to escape, and like a lot of times things that happen to you, you end up following up and doing again and again and again. But it's like, oh my goodness, you're a grown man writing this, and I can't take it. I can't take it. I'm sorry. But yeah, 4.5 stars is pretty good. Like, it was insane. Like, I related to Charlie so deeply. This is an insane take on PTSD and bipolar disorder, and I found myself relating to it because I suffer from PTSD and BPD. So I was like, you know what? This is such an insane book, and it's so realistic, and I know it's based off of the author's personal experiences. So you know it's gonna be fire because it's based on someone who actually has mental illness, and not someone who's just making stuff up. So it's like, I was just sobbing, and I was just so moved. I didn't have any annotation tabs because I'm running out, but I did like annotate it, and there are things I did underline. It broke my heart. My main issue with this book is, it's not spoilers because this book's been out for a while, and also the movie. Charlie ends up dating Sam by the end of the movie. They're not necessarily, in the movie they end up like dating. They're not necessarily dating in the book, which I like, but they have kissed, and they are like kind of in a relationship. It's really weird, and they're like really close, and it's still gross to me. Charlie, it's also a weirder age gap in the movie than it is in the book, but it's still a definite weird age gap. Charlie in the book is 15, in the movie he's 14, and after years of being assaulted sexually by his aunt when he was 3, 4, 5, 6, he's now in a relationship with 2 separate 18-year-old women, 2 adult women. I think Sam might be 17 and then 18, but yeah, no, they're 18. Two grown women engage in relations, one of them sexual, with a 14 to 15-year-old boy. To me, that's just wrong. Especially after he'd just been sexually abused by an older woman for years. And no one looked at the relationship he had with Mary Elizabeth or Sam and thought that was wrong. Even after he gets out of the mental hospital, his parents just like let him go see Sam, and like, I don't know if they know that Sam did that, but they never like question his relationship with Mary Elizabeth at all. And they do some pretty sexual things too. Makes you really uncomfortable. I want to make a video about this book, but let me know in the comments if you want to hear about that. But I don't know, it was pretty, and it's like, you're a grown man writing this. But I get like the cycle continues. Like, Aunt Helen was abused as a child, and instead of like going on and living her normal life, she went on and abused Charlie. So it's like, and it's like Sam, she was abused as a child, and guess what? She continues a relationship with Charlie. I get that she probably doesn't think it's wrong, but it is wrong. You were abused by an older man, and now you are older and in a controlling, like, it's controversial, but you hold more power than him because you are doing well, incredibly well mentally, and you're way older. And here's this weak, fragile child who has extreme mental problems, and you're like, and is so sad, wants to kill himself, and you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna kiss him. Remember when you were that weak, vulnerable child, and someone of power held a position over you and was abusing you? You're doing the exact same thing. Like, it's but again, they are children. None of them are necessarily in therapy, and Charlie barely talks to his psychologist and doesn't end up in the mental hospital till the end of the book, so he doesn't realize what's going on is wrong. But even after he gets out of the mental hospital, he still sees Sam and kisses her. Okay, I've been venting. Yeah. I don't know, I just had a lot of feelings towards that book. The next book, okay, really quick. It was a really short read, only like 100 and something pages, but it is a sapphic book, so you know I had to get it, and it's a classic, so it's like, and it's pretty accurate for a sapphic book written by a man. The Yearning is incredible, and that was Carmilla, 4 stars. Again, I have a hard time giving classics full 5 stars, because like the words, because like the rhetoric and the writing style, and like the racist rhetorics and stuff. And this one had a couple of racist rhetorics, and like the depiction of women were a little off, but it was insane, and that was Carmilla. Let me read to you. Let me read to you what my review says, and it's just a quote from the book. You are mine, you shall be mine. You and I are one forever. The Yearning is insane. I want to read an adaptation called Hungerstone of Carmilla. Oh, I just love sapphic vampires. Something about it is so insane. So insane. And the devotion and the love. Oh, so moving. And yeah, everyone should read this. And I plan on reading Dracula too. But I just want to read Carmilla first because she came first, and I prefer lesbians to men. Okay, we're down to 2 more books. Here's another classic. They're both classics, actually. Yeah, sorry. But this one I actually gave 5 stars. I literally just said I don't give classics 5 stars. So you know this one moved me. And that was Persuasion by Jane Austen. And let me tell you, the title of this book is Persuasion. And you see why it's called Persuasion throughout the entire book. Like, it's so insane. Jane Austen, you are a literary mastermind. I love you. If I could resurrect you from the dead and marry you, I would. Like, there's like, if there was one dead author I could talk to, it would be Jane Austen. See what I mean? Like, favorite author. That's what I mean. This is what R. Kwong has to compete to. So, hard to, but like, oh my gosh. So like, throughout this entire book, our main character, Anne, is kind of like dealing with her feelings and relationships to a certain Captain Wentworth. And that's because when she was like 18 or 19 or maybe even 16, I don't remember. She was engaged to by Captain Wentworth, but he was just a sailor back then and he didn't have much prospects, and so her sister like convinced her and used persuasion to tell her, hey, don't get with that man. And like for years it's like, don't get with that man. And she let her sister's persuasion rule over her own desire and love, and was like, okay, yeah, I'll wait for him to get more money, and I'll wait for someone for more money to get married. So she says no. And like a couple years later, he does get married and he does get more prospects. He gets married to someone else and he gets more prospects, and she really regrets it. And like she like kind of spends the rest of this book listening to other people say things to her and letting what they're saying. They're persuading her to do all these things. It's not necessarily like they're persuading her, but she's just listening to what they're saying. It's like, yeah, that's kind of like a good thing to do, and she does it. And it's like, by the end of the book, she realizes, oh, I kind of want to do my own thing. And by the end of the book, Captain Wentworth's wife has died, and he's single again, and he's rich as fuck. And she's like, and they get married, and she lets her own persuasion, the persuasion of love, take over and gets back to him. Oh, sorry, I just had to spoil the book, but it's insane, and I love it so much. Ugh, I want to like get the entire script of this book tattooed into my brain. It was so insane. Jane Austen, please marry me, even though you're dead. Okay. Last book. Okay. I don't know if this is considered a classic, but it was considered a classic for my English class, and a bunch of my friends read this for English class in 11th grade. This was our ISU was classic. I read Pride and Prejudice, but the Pride and Prejudice was tied with this book, and I almost read it, but then I thought maybe I shouldn't read this book and write an essay about it for English class, because that might get too personal with my teacher, and I don't want to get that personal with that man. so I waited. But the book is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I found out about her story, and I was just so sad, like, about what happened to her, and I just related to her, like, mental health struggles, and I was like, I need to read this. And I've also read her poems, and I love her poetry. It's just like, I'm so saddened that she felt that she had nothing else to do, but when she was such an insane literary talent and should have been alive and should be one of the greats. But because men suck, and mental health, particularly health, didn't exist at all. This is the take on mental health in the 60s. Oh my. But yeah, I really wanted to read this book in 11th grade, but I never ended up doing it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm a grown woman now. I can read it. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars because there is some homophobic and racist rhetoric. And again, I don't necessarily enjoy watching women be like hurt and abused. And that's kind of what happens in this book. It's mainly focused on women's mental health in the 60s and how they were treated, and like how mental health was treated. And it's like so sad and so moving. And so it's like we have a college student named Esther who's just like working away in college. She works at an editing firm, and then like all of a sudden she's like developing some trouble sleeping, and she's like with a really rude man. Like she's developing lots of troubles. So her mom is like takes her to a psychiatrist, and the first thing that man says is, you need electroshock therapy. You need electroshock therapy. And her mom's like, you know what? Yeah, that sounds perfectly fine for my 20-year-old daughter to just get electroshock therapy because she's having some sleeping troubles. Instead of, like maybe giving her some sleeping pills or like trying some other things, or like talking about why she can't sleep. Like because she's so stressed at school and work. So he's like, yeah, no, we need to give her 4 electroshock therapy treatments. And so they give her 4. And the doctor's like, I don't think you need more. He's like, I don't think she's doing good, actually. I think she needs more. And so they give her 2 more. And she's like, And they're like, it's like horrible. She's like awake during these electroshock therapy treatments, and they're like, she's describing what she's seeing, and it's like, I'm like, Sylvia, did you have to go through electroshock therapy? I see why you went in the oven. So yeah. And then after a while, she goes to her mom. She's like, I'm feeling so much better. I don't think I need to see the doctor. And she's like, I knew you were better. You don't need to see the doctor. And so they stopped seeing that man. And she's like kind of doing better, but she's kind of not. And she's like kind of worsening. She's still having a hard time sleeping. And eventually she decides that life is hard enough. And she keeps talking about why she wants to die. And she's like, no, I can't go through with that. I don't like blood. I don't do this. I don't do that. But she does start self-harming, and she does have lots and lots of thoughts of death. And it's like really sad. And eventually one day she finds sleeping pills in the bathroom. She goes into a lunchroom and she climbs kind of like into the vents into this kind of hole. And she takes all the sleeping pills. And she thinks she's gonna die and like no one's gonna find her. And she writes like a letter like that says, I went on for a walk, so everyone thinks she's missing and they're searching for her and really she's ODing in the basement. And eventually her mom goes to do laundry. And even though her daughter's missing, she's like, I'm gonna go do the laundry. And she finds daughter in the basement. And she's like, oopsies. And so they admit her to a psych ward. She's in the psych ward. Yeah. She's in the psych ward now. It's insane. And then the things in the psych ward, they're not that much better than the things that the doctor was doing to her. She no longer necessarily gets electroshock therapy treatment, but she is in the psych ward, and it's crazy. She meets a woman who's had a lobotomy and who's like wrongfully imprisoned there because she's Latina. But she also is apparently crazy and schizophrenic, so you're not really sure if she's innocent or not. So the doctors are just saying all these things, and you don't necessarily trust the doctors. And there's this nurse that she's kind of like racist against, and she gets kicked out of one mental facility, for doing something wrong because she like stole a piece of glass. And they were like, we know, and they kick her out, and that's why she's in this like really extreme mental hospital where at once she's like strapped down and like it's insane, and she's like gotta go through all her problems with the doctor. And like eventually one of her friends ends up in the mental hospital, and she's like, I read about you and I realized I was actually kind of depressed, and I'm here with you, Pookie, because I tried that as well. And so what? It's insane. Yeah, and she just goes through a lot, and it's just really traumatizing. You need to hear her story, and you need to hear all the other patient stories, and then eventually, like, this is kind of like a spoiler, but at the end of the book, she like gets released like a minor facility where she like gets like to go out all the time and gets to see the sun actually, and her friend is there, and it's like really awesome. And then at one point, her friend gets like fully released and is like living out. She's like, that's so cool. And then our main character Esther gets a day pass, and she's like, I'm gonna go see Jane. But instead of seeing Jane, she starts seeing this man, and she's like, you know what? So I'm gonna lose my virginity to this random man. Until they do, and he's like a little rough. And then she's like, wow, I'm bleeding. And she goes to her friend's house, and she's like profusely bleeding, and it turns out she's had like a prolapse, and like it's like a 1 in a million chance. And she's like got a major artery bleed, and she like almost dies. And it's really sad. And her friend's there for her the whole time, and it's really sad. And she ends up having to go back to the mental hospital, because it's really traumatic. And then eventually her friend comes back to the mental hospital, and she's like, no, I really hope she didn't have to come because of me, but it was for like lots of other reasons. She could not be on her own. And it's really sad. And eventually our main character is supposed to be released from the mental hospital, and then Jane dies. She goes into the woods, she finds a little rope, and she goes for a dance in the trees. Logan Paul style, if you know what I mean. Yeah, and she no longer exists, and it's really sad, and she goes to her funeral. But despite everything that happens, Esther is in a point in her life where she is doing well with her mental health. She also doesn't really like Jane that much. So she's like, you know what? I'm gonna do this interview, and I'm gonna try to get out of here, and I'm gonna try to go back to school and live my life. And it's really sad because she really tries to persevere and through her mental health struggles and just get better. And it does seem like she's getting better, and that she wants to go and live her life. And it's so sad knowing that Sylvia, yes, she really wanted to try. She really wanted to live her life, and unfortunately, she did not, unlike Esther, find what she needed to keep going. It's so sad, and I want to cry. But this book so deeply moved me that I decided, yeah, no, I need to annotate it. There's so many pages, so many that I could call out, and the opening quote in this book made me actually start sobbing. Because if you don't know what happened to Sylvia Plath, I don't want to say it because I don't want this video to get taken out, but Google how Sylvia Plath dies, and it's really sad knowing how she dies reading this quote of the book. So basically she reads a newspaper report of someone getting the electric chair and dying, and she's like, I don't understand why people go to watch people die, like to get executed. It's really sad. It's and gross too. I don't understand why people would watch that. And she's like, it would be a terrible way to die. And this is the quote. It had nothing to do with me, but I couldn't help wondering what it would be like being burned alive all along your nerves. I wonder what it would be like being burned alive all along your nerves. Google how she died. It's really sad. Okay, so those are the books I read this May, and it was a lot. I'm sorry for making this video so long, and I'm sorry that there was no April reading wrap-up, but probably don't care because my reading wrap-ups don't do well. But yeah, if you like this video, make sure you like and maybe look at the other ones because I like to talk a lot, and if you like my yapping, you'll enjoy this channel. Yeah, see you in the next video.